Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to do a little more with Clo3D and we're going to make a hoodie. We're going to learn a few more tools. Let's get started. In split screen mode, let's add an avatar, then grab the polygon tool. We're going to start with the neckline and add a wide shoulder line, a side seam, and then we're going to reconnect with the first point. The pattern will fill. Now grab the curve tool. Curve the neckline and the armhole. The armhole needs to be steep toward the bottom and flatter toward the top. You can always adjust the curve with the Edit Pattern tool later on. Use the Edit Pattern tool to right-click the center line and unfold with symmetric editing. Now copy and paste. We want the pattern to be unlinked because we need to adjust the neckline and armhole. In the 3D window, right-click the back pattern and flip. Now position it on the back. We can bring up these position points in the avatar to help us. Now grab the segment sewing tool and sew the shoulder and side seams. Since these are symmetric patterns, it'll update on both sides. Let's add a sleeve. Back in the 2D window, create a large rectangle. You can use the rectangle tool or the polygon tool. Now grab the add point tool and place a point in the center here and two others close to the edges. Use the edit pattern tool to move the center point over, then shift select the outer 2 points and move those about half the distance. Use the curve tool to create the cap. The edit pattern tool again to widen the cap and shrink the cuff a little bit here. We'll do some more adjusting once we get it on the avatar. Select the pattern, right-click the symmetric pattern with sewing option. In the 3D pattern window, we'll rotate the sleeves into position, and now we'll use the free sewing tool. The trick with this tool is to start with your smallest side first in the 2D window and find the left shoulder point and move the mouse over it across the armhole. And you'll see that reflected here in the 3D window. It helps you in certain circumstances to see where the sewing is going to happen before you actually do it. Click the shoulder point, move the mouse across the line, then click again. Remember, this is not a click and drag, this is a click, move, and then click again tool. Check your 3D window and simulate. At this point, we should tailor the sleeves. Stop the simulation first, though. Use the Edit Pattern tool to click and drag the edge, or use your arrows on your keyboard. Do a little at a time and move the pattern in the 3D window occasionally, simulating and stopping to avoid any collisions with the hand. Let's add cuffs. We'll do a simple version now, but if you want to add more realism with a correct pattern, then follow this short up here. In the 2D window, select the edge of the sleeve, right-click, and choose Offset as Internal Line, and go with about 2 inches. Then right-click the line, cut and sew. Double-click the center of this new pattern and scale it down. Sew the edges and sew the seams. And simulate. And make any further edits that you need. Now let's make a hood. First, make the pattern about 1.5 times taller than the head using the polygon tool. It's going to look like this. And you can change the line length after by right-clicking. But first, let's get a measurement for the front and the back of one side of the pattern. Using the Edit Pattern tool, shift-click on the front and then shift-click on the back. And that should give you the total distance. Let's right-click on the bottom of the hood and make it about the same length, just round it up a tiny bit. Now use the curve tool on the back of the hood like this. Select the pattern and choose Symmetric Pattern with Sewing and move it over to the left. Segment sew the back sections, then now we need to use the free sewing tool to start on the back of the hood and come around to the neckline. This is a little tricky. So what you want to do is come over to the back of the hood and determine with the free sewing tool where you'll start. This point represents the center of the back. So we want to start here and move across. It's easy to visualize on the 3D window when you drag the free sewing tool across which pattern you're actually going to be sewing. So since we know this one here is going to sew to this pattern here, let's start at the back, drag, and then click. And then we're going to start at the back of the hood and move forward. And Clo knows how far we want to go with that. Let's give it a simulate and see. Okay, looks good. You'll have to do some edits like grabbing the front point here and pulling that a little bit forward and rounding out the back of the arc a little bit. Now let's add a pocket and a waistband. Select the front pattern and use the internal line tool to draw this pocket. Grab the trace pattern tool and right click to trace the pattern. It will create a new pattern for the actual pocket, and that's going to be off on the left here. Segment sew all the sides except for where the hands will go in the pocket. Now right click the opening to make that just a little bit bigger, and then simulate. Add a waistband to your design, the same way you did the sleeves. Now let's add two fabrics. We're going to add jersey knit and then rib for those cuffs and waistbands. Change the color on the property editor by first selecting the object, and then go to the property editor, and you'll have to desaturate the ribbed fabric here. Now change your fabric in the 3D window to thick. Take a closer look at your design. In the next video, we'll add some style to this hoodie. Congrats, you got a hoodie already made.